Welcome to the Fundamentals of Training Special Needs Children and Adults. This course was designed to give trainers an insight on how to work with children and adults that have special needs. This can be anything from autism to Down syndrome. What is an evaluation? An evaluation is meant to give you the information necessary to create a program for each person. The most important thing is learning their goals and understanding the activities they may have trouble with and the activities that they are good at. Keep in mind, the evaluation is not just about the tests. Make sure you take into account the child's daily activities. For example, if a child has trouble running or playing with a ball, this is not just a physical issue. This can impact their ability to be social at recess or participate in gym class. Before the evaluation begins, have the parent email you as much information as possible. This will get you prepared before the evaluation so that you can better understand what the child or person needs before they even get to you. Here are the steps you must take when working with a new client. Step 1. Have the parent or guardian fill out all the forms: intake, liability, photo release. The intake form is the first place where you will gather all the information that you will need to start the process. Step 2. Have a phone call with the parent or guardian. This gives you a chance to introduce yourself and gives them an idea of what to expect before their first session. Explain to them what information you need, such as an IEP, any doctor information, or any information that may be important for you to design a program specific for this child. Step 3. Meet the parents and the child. Step 4. Do your movement assessment. Step 5. Be sure to follow up after the assessment to get any feedback. Looking at the intake form. Find out what the child's diagnosis is because this will help you understand more about the child before their first session. There are some common diagnoses that you will come across. ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. This is a developmental disorder that affects communication and behavior. Although autism can be diagnosed at any age, it is said to be a developmental disorder because symptoms generally appear in the first 2 years of life. Attention Deficit Disorder, ADHD, a brain disorder marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functioning and development. ADD, Attention Deficit Disorder. This is a developmental disorder that is marked especially by persistent symptoms of inattention such as distractibility, forgetfulness, and disorganization. The symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity may cause the kid to fidget, to speak out of turn, will be restless. These are some serious underlying conditions that may affect your client. ABA is Applied Behavioral Analysis. This is the science in which the principles of the analysis of behavior are applied systematically to improve socially significant behaviors, and experimentation is used to identify the variables responsible for the behavior change. ABA is used by many therapists and schools to help all types of children that are considered special needs. AS, Asperger's syndrome, one of several previously separate subtypes of autism that fall under the single diagnosis, autism spectrum disorder. Asperger's syndrome was generally considered to be on the high functioning end of the spectrum. SPD, sensory processing disorder, a neurological disorder in which the sensory information that the individual perceives results in abnormal responses. ASL, American Sign Language. This is a form of language using the hands. DS, Down syndrome, a congenital disorder arising from a chromosome defect causing intellectual impairment and physical abnormalities, including short stature and a broad facial profile. It arises from a defect involving chromosome 21, which is usually an extra copy of that. MS, multiple sclerosis, a chronic, typically progressive disease involving damage to the sheets of the nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord, whose symptoms may include numbness, impairment of speech, and of muscular coordination. Blurred vision and severe fatigue may set in. CP, which is cerebral palsy, a condition marked by impaired muscle coordination and or other disabilities typically caused by damage to the brain before or at birth. Cancer, a disease caused by an uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in a part of the body. Deaf, lacking the power of hearing or having impaired hearing. Blind, unable to see because of injury, disease, or a congenital condition. The information that you will get from this part of the intake form will help you design a program and combat any issues that you might come across during the program. For example, what motivates the child, or if the child needs to be rewarded to move on to the next thing. This information will help you not only design better exercises, but make a better program for the child that you can navigate through with as little interruption and resting as possible. Understanding behavior issues is key because it will help you determine the external and internal factors that affect that child's behavior. Learn how the parent or caregiver reinforce positive behavior to get the child to follow directions and discontinue the bad behaviors. If the child has behavioral issues, they most likely will have an ABA therapist working with them. What is ABA? ABA is Applied Behavioral Analysis. Behavior analysis focuses on the principles that explain how learning takes place. Positive reinforcement is one such principle. When a behavior is followed by some sort of reward, the behavior is more likely to be repeated. Understanding the principles of ABA is important for conducting your fitness session in the most efficient way. Look at the last copy of the child's evaluation from their ABA therapist to get a better idea on what the child is working on and some of the cues necessary to get a child to perform the way that you want. Remember, the goal is to stay on the same page as the school, home, and any outside activities. We are using exercise to reinforce the behaviors that all the other therapists, teachers, and educators are working on. Language is very important when talking to your client. Remember, not all kids can follow through on multi-step directions. Short phrases and questions are better depending on your child's cognitive level. For example, if you want to get a child to jump 2 times, you might say, "Show me jump 2 times." Or you might say, show me jump in succession. You will learn as time goes on what works for each child. Trigger words. Some children have certain phrases or words that are helpful to know to help them redirect or reinforce a certain behavior. For example, a trigger word such as arrow eyes would be said when you need the child's full attention and focus while giving them directions. Saying this word will get the child's attention, then you can give instruction, and it's best to have them repeat what you just said to be sure that they really understand. Keep in mind, there can be some negative trigger words, so make sure that you learn from the parents and educators what words are best for the child you're working with. Your energy level and your body language are very important. Children with special needs have a knack for really picking up on people's body language and energy. So stay cheerful and don't really do things that might upset the child, like sudden movements or pointing, because some children don't really understand pointing. Really try to keep things simple and be happy. Many children on the spectrum have impulsive behaviors or self regulation mannerisms that may get the average person frustrated. Do not get frustrated. Once you are frustrated, these kids will pick that up and it will just become a vicious cycle. We need to remember that the child is not doing this stuff on purpose. This is the way they self regulate themselves, and sometimes this is how they might express happiness, frustration, or any emotion. You will learn what they are trying to tell you over time. It just takes time while you work with these kids to really learn what's going on. Don't take things personal, stay calm, redirect, and stay on course. Sensory issues. Children and adults with autism, as well as those with other developmental disabilities, may have a dysfunctional sensory system. Sometimes one or more senses are either over or underreactive to stimulation. Such sensory problems may be the underlying reason for such behaviors as rocking, spinning, hand flapping, oversensitive to sight, sounds, textures, flavors, smells, and other sensory input that might upset the child. Why you should allow the child to gain sensory input they seek. It helps the body relax when they are frustrated during activities. It helps them calm down. It helps them feel better. It helps them concentrate and follow through on the next task. Examples of sensory behaviors you might see are having an unusually high or low pain threshold, crashing into walls or even people, putting objects in their mouth, jumping up and down, swaying side to side, flapping of the hands, involuntary movements due to excitement or irritation. There are many different things that could happen. You'll learn to identify these things with each child as time goes on. This is important when you're conducting your fitness session because you need to have a better understanding of why the child is doing certain sensory seeking behaviors. It will help you to determine what your child is asking for and how you can help and provide them with the sensory feedback they need to help maybe stop those behaviors or redirect those behaviors. The reward system is the best way to get your client to do the things that you want during your session. Once the child understands the what's in it for me principle, they will be much more compliant. Rewards may be used more than once to reinforce positive behavior and the completion of tasks during your sessions. Parents usually have rewards in place for their children, so speak to them first. This will give you some insight on what is appropriate for the child while exercising, but more importantly, there might be some things that are restricted. Sometimes rewards will have to be used multiple times during the session. Find out what the child likes best, such as the trampoline, swing, or a certain piece of equipment. Then you could determine when that reward is given based on the task they completed. You want to motivate them to do the harder tasks by giving them better rewards. Your child will eventually create a bond with you and learn to trust you. So make sure you remember to follow through on all the things you say. Do not break promises to your clients. A good example of a reward would be to get Johnny to do a push up. Johnny hates push ups. The reward would be his favorite thing. So if he loves the trampoline, give him that after the push up. If he has another exercise that's simpler that he might like, say a squat, the reward should be a little bit less. So if you know he likes to swing, then you let him swing after that. Save the best rewards for the most difficult tasks. Children with autism may lose focus or lack interest on certain tasks, especially tasks that do not interest them. A child's motivation is determined by what they like or dislike, what they have had success with in the past, or what may have been difficult for them. Motivators such as their favorite songs, iPad, favorite food, earning a toy or a gift from their parents, or using their favorite piece of gym equipment are great rewards to motivate each person. Remember to always control the reward when possible. For example, if the reward is jumping on the trampoline, do not allow the child to endlessly jump on the trampoline. Put a time on it or count the repetitions. This will keep the reward interesting. A phone call to the parents or caregivers before and after the assessment will give a personal touch and show how much you actually care. Parents are usually the child's best advocate and will be able to answer most of your questions. More importantly, a phone call before will really prepare you for what the child's needs are and what to expect. Keep the parent informed by constantly updating them on progress and any challenges that are disrupting their child's progress. Following up with a parent by phone or in person is imperative to the child's success. The parent may have some new ideas or insights that may help you. When asking for the parent's help, it is important to remember that we are the experts and that they look to us for answers. A good rule of thumb is to tell the parents what you have tried, why you tried it, and what the outcome was, and then ask for their input. When meeting your child and parent at the gym, remember this is likely a new experience for the both of them, and any external or internal factors could influence their first visit. Avoid any negative environmental distractions, such as a messy gym, very noisy, a chaotic atmosphere, can cause children on the spectrum or any child with special needs to have a negative reaction. When meeting the child, getting down on one knee sometimes helps because you get down on their level. If the child is able to communicate, speak about something of interest to them as an icebreaker. For example, if Johnny likes cars and superheroes, use this for an icebreaker. Johnny, I love your superhero shirt. Or Johnny, your favorite superhero is the same one I love. You will learn this from the intake, and parents will appreciate this because they will know you took the time to get the information that you need. In the event the child is nonverbal or has issues with speaking, do not force them to respond, but do the same. Speak to them because in most circumstances, they are listening. When bringing your child into a new area of the gym for their first time, they may be interested in exploring this new environment. Let them explore the area and get comfortable. Always remember to put safety first. Don't let them run around or do anything that might endanger them. The goal is just to satisfy their curiosity and to get them comfortable with the new area. Be sure to explain to them what you plan to do before you introduce them to the new area or introduce them to a new task. This is called a social story. This is a great thing for you to send to a parent before they even bring the child into the gym. Children with special needs like to know what to expect. This social story gives them a map of what they will be doing and why. It definitely helps to lower anxiety, and scared children will definitely do better if they see this social story first. When designing a program, every child is different. You will be able to determine the best program for each child by reading their IEP, speaking with their parents, and gathering all the information from the intake forms. Remember, in the beginning, setting up your child for success is the best way for them to enjoy a fitness program. You do not want to make this a negative experience, so in the beginning, do not choose difficult exercises. Try to choose exercises that you know the child can do that are simple to breed success. As time goes on, you will build a relationship with the child and trust with the child and parent. This is important because the parent has to reinforce the things you are doing at the gym at home. So it's very, very important to include the parent in all the things that you are doing for this positive reinforcement. Some children may have physical and or cognitive limitations that need to be accommodated during the session. Success should be looked at as little steps that lead up to a greater goal. Just because the child may not be able to do high intensity exercises doesn't mean they won't benefit from lower intensity or more basic exercises, such as standing on one foot while holding onto a rail. Trainers need to progress or intensify an activity without discouraging the child. Going back to the standing on one foot with the rail, Progressing that would just be taking the hand off the rail, or, if that's too difficult, having them hold the rail with maybe 2 or 3 fingers. Using words of affirmation or phrases for their accomplishments, regardless of how big or small, will go a very long way. The workout session will improve strength, endurance, and confidence that will carry over to social environments such as home and school. A common misconception is that training children or adults with special needs is completely different than training the average person. However, when it comes to actual exercise prescription, there is no real difference. The exercise prescription is based on the findings in the evaluation and the intake forms. For example, if the client demonstrates a weak glute medius during a squat, you would prescribe the same strength exercises that you would prescribe for the average person. The major difference lies within the communication with each of these clients, as well as their ability to motor plan and perform the exercises correctly. Getting the client to perform a movement varies in difficulty because even clients with the same diagnosis may have completely different abilities. A good example is one autistic child may be able to copy your movements exactly, while another autistic child cannot copy the movements at all. Communication is the foundation of your relationship and will be the key to success. Another challenge is learning to accommodate physical disabilities. When you have a child in a wheelchair that only has physical limitations, you have to be creative with your programming because if it's too easy, they will get discouraged and bored. However, if a child in a wheelchair also has cognitive issues, establishing communication is more important than coming up with challenging physical tasks. The trainer has to keep things simple and breed success to avoid any tantrums or meltdowns. As the trainer, you cannot get frustrated or lose your cool. In the event there is a serious tantrum or behavioral episode, seek assistance from the parent or caregiver. In the event there is no support person available, just let the tantrum play out and make sure the area is safe. You may want to call the parents if you can get on the phone while this is going on. One-on-one training is the best way to address the individual's specific needs and to get to know your child's personality and behaviors. The session should focus on correcting any muscle imbalances you may find during the movement screening. Since certain children might have trouble in a group environment, we suggest starting out with one-on-one training. Some children can get distracted in groups and might be uncomfortable in front of others. By doing a one-on-one session, you will build the child's confidence, and eventually they should be able to work in a group, which will give them the socialization piece they need while integrating the fitness. Group training is a great way to get clients in a setting that integrates socialization into their fitness session. The first thing a trainer must do is determine if the client is ready for a group session. Some children may not be ready or appropriate for group training. Factors that help determine this are their behaviors, verbal versus nonverbal children, the ability to follow through on multi-step directions. Set your groups up with children that have similar abilities. You may think that a particular child will do well with another child, but that's not always the case. There are times where a child might have similar abilities to another child, but they just don't mix in a group setting. For example, you may have a child with certain behavioral issues in the same group as a child that has no behavioral issues. The class may become less productive because the child with behavioral issues may distract the other child or children during the session. These distractions can influence the behaviors of the other children. Some children with physical limitations may need an aide or a parent to assist during the session. If you have an aide, a parent, or a volunteer helping you with a certain child, make sure they have a clear direction of what you are doing and what you are asking the child to do. When designing a group class or any one-on-one session, make sure that it is fun and functional. For example, don't just let the clients run around and do random things. Set up an obstacle course with exercises that fit the group or the individual based on what you found in the evaluation and intake process. Make sure that each obstacle course contains a lateral exercise, a linear exercise, and a vertical exercise. You may need to modify some exercises to fit the abilities of certain clients. For example, if a client cannot jump over a hurdle, help them to jump over it, or simply allow them to step over it. You want to breed success. Sensory timeout is when a child or an adult needs to take a break from a specific activity. Many children and adults with special needs, specifically autism, have sensory issues and therefore will require a sensory break in between exercises. This will allow the child or adult to refocus and engage with you as the trainer or teacher. For example, have the child do 5 push ups followed by 5 jumps on the trampoline. Some other examples of sensory exercises are bouncing on a stability ball, jumping on a trampoline or Bosu ball, medicine ball slams, pushing the sled, a broad jump, or a frog jump. Keep in mind, sensory is to regulate the child's system or the adult's system. When they get upset, sometimes doing an exercise, especially one that has a reactive force such as jumping or slamming a heavy medicine ball, helps to calm the person down. It is important to dedicate a safe place for the sensory timeout. For example, if you're doing a gym workout, set a little space aside where the child or adult could go to calm down. The following slides will have some demonstrations of what a small space should look like to help give these people a place to have a timeout where they feel safe. This section has some basic templates for exercise programming when doing groups or one-on-one training sessions. These are just suggested exercises to give you a good starting point. Be creative and keep in mind when designing the programs, keep them both functional and fun. This section is meant to give you some general obstacle course ideas and basic exercise recommendations that you can use with each client. This section is not voiced over because it is understood as a trainer you already know these exercises and understand how to use them. This is just to give you an idea of how to apply the knowledge you already have with this type of clientele. The assessment exercises we chose are basic tests to give the trainer an idea of what they need to work on. As an experienced trainer, you will know what all of these tests already are, so we're not going to go into great detail of explaining how to do them. Rather, we are just going to show which ones we suggest and why. The squat is one of the most fundamental exercises a trainer can do. It is also a great test that is simple to teach and gives you a lot of useful information. We suggest having a child squat based on your instruction. Do not give visual cues until it's necessary. We say this because we want to see how a child processes information when you give instruction. If they have a hard time with that, then move on to visual cues. This will give you the information you need when you are designing a program for this child because you will understand how to better communicate with them. Always start by giving instruction first and then giving visual cues. The wall angel is a simple test that is challenging and can be fun. Simply have a child lean against the wall, keeping all their body parts pressed against the wall, and have them reach up and down. You can make it into a game by letting them know when their body part comes away, they lose a point. The one leg stand is a great balance test and it can be made into a game. It's simple to teach and easy to do. So for a child, you could have them count while they're on one foot and see how high they could get before they fall over. The plank endurance test is a great test that is easy to teach and gives a good evaluation of core strength and the child's ability to keep good form at all joints. This can be made into a game by timing them and having them yell out every 10 seconds or so. The paradoxical breathing test has been used by trainers and therapists for many years. It is not a popular test, but it is easy to do and very informative. Simply have the client lie down or stand with one hand on their stomach and the other hand on their chest. Have them take a deep breath. Notice where the movement comes from when they breathe. If they breathe from their chest and have poor core control, you will see the hand on their chest raise up. If they breathe from their stomach, where they are supposed to, you will see their hand on their stomach raise up. If someone is a paradoxical breather, it indicates an inhibition of the diaphragm and overactivation of secondary respiratory muscles. The diaphragm is an important part of the core, so if it is inhibited, core stability cannot be optimal. The push up is one of the oldest exercises in the fitness industry. The push up is important because it shows us a lot of imbalances, strengths, and weaknesses during the movement. The push up for a special needs child is even more important because many kids at school do push ups in gym class. The idea here is to get a child with special needs to be able to fit in at school and in social situations. Having them be able to perform the same physical activities and exercises as their peers will allow them to better fit in to social environments at school and in play settings. The toe touch is a great way to measure hamstring flexibility. You can make this into a game by having a child reach down to the floor, keeping their knees straight, and measure it. This will make the child feel like it's something fun. You don't have to tell them whether they passed or failed. Just get a measurement so you have an idea of what their flexibility and their hamstrings are. Take note of their back, see if it's rounded, make sure that there's no spinal flexion. The supine foam roller test is a great test for core and hip strength. You have a client lie down on the roller, both hands around the chest, pick one leg up, and don't fall off the roller. You can easily make this into a game by timing how long they can stay on one foot without flying off the roller.